Get ready, everyone, and you just might survive. Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men.
It's like an exhaustive deep dive. It's like an exhaustive deep dive.
So get ready for the learned edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to
It's like
blow.
an exhaustive deep
Except your
dive.
mind. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow. Except your mind.
Yes, that's how Jim starts these things, right? Welcome, all you weirdos.
All the sound effects. Yep.
All the sound effects. Welcome, all you weirdos, creepy butterfly collectors, and everyone who knows what actual Guinness looks like. It is time to receive your 141st Weird Dose of X, the mutant member of your Weird Science podcast family. I am your still crossing over host, Jason, broadcasting as always from the Wrong Turn Studio, perched high atop Stately Weird Science Tower. And joining me as always is a man who has been to the Chicago Bean, but not for Gamma-related purposes. It's my pal Ruben. Hey Ruben, how the heck are you today?
Hey, pretty good. That's actually a true statement for once.
As far as we all know, there was no Gamma involved. I mean, you sent me a picture once of you there in that park in Chicago by the Bean.
Yeah, I was actually really happy at the artist renditions of the Chicago Bean location because I was like, yeah, it looks very much like what I remember.
Yeah, that comes up in the Infinity comic today that was just published like 12 hours ago as we record. And yeah, it looks like he probably had some good photo reference and kind of had the feel of it. It looks nice.
Yep.
Other things going on today. For a minute there, I thought that the X-Men titles were really starting to catch on, that maybe this X-Manhunt crossover was breaking through to the mainstream, because I heard somebody on TV being super excited talking about something going on with Xavier. Turns out, false alarm, just a dumb basketball thing. Oh, well.
Yes.
But we're not here to talk about our brackets, Ruben. We're here to talk about X-Men comics. We have 4 of them today, plus the Infinity comic. And those 4 are X-Force number 9.
Number 9.
Which
number
is the...
9.
Uh-oh, it's
number
stuck.
9.
That sounded pretty realistic. X-Force number 9, which is chapter 6 of the X-Manhunt storyline. We have Exceptional X-Men number 7, which is billed as a tie-in to X-Manhunt, which it kind of is, but really no more than the Infinity comic is. We'll get to that in a minute. We have Magic number 3, and we have Psylock number 5. So, does that sound like a fun way to spend a little bit of time here, Ruben, talking about those books?
Yeah, those are all worth talking about.
Those are all comic books. They certainly are. So let's get into it, and the first one is... as always, the Astonishing X-Men number 15 Infinity comic, which is Controlled Demolition Part 3, written by Alex Pagdadel, art by Philip Sevi, colors by Michael Bartolo, and all 3 of those, I think, are currently banned from travel to Ireland. We'll get to why. Letters by Clayton Cowles. I think he's probably allowed. I don't think it was his fault. So, as usual, we have our 2 strands of story, one set in Chicago, the other in Ireland. Actually, this time it's more like 3 strands. We have 2 separate stories in Chicago and 1 in Ireland. There is a phone call that connects 2 of them this week, but still pretty separate so far. So let's start in Chicago. Angelo, also known as Skin, he's having some money troubles. Despite being such a fantastic construction worker that I guess he's putting multiple regular humans out of work, he's also such a bad salary negotiator that he doesn't have enough money to pay for a crappy cockroach-infested apartment with the L train right outside the window. I know that housing costs are in a bad way in America's cities today, but I think he should be doing a little bit better. Yeah. Also, he pays his rent the same way that he receives his salary. Cash money in a paper envelope. That seems weird to me. Is it like a legality thing? Are mutants discriminated against when it comes to getting checking accounts? I don't know. Maybe it's me, but I've never paid for rent or received salary with just here's an envelope full of cash. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, like I said last time, I feel like that suggests off-book payments. And the only thing I could think of is, and I don't know if this is still major plot point for Skin, that he was a gang member in Los Angeles and faked his own death. So
okay.
maybe he doesn't want to be, on the books anywhere.
Maybe even besides the Krakoa thing, he might not be currently legally alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, makes sense. I can buy that. His landlady, Mrs. Schmidt, she doesn't seem to mind the cash, but she notices that he's like $40 short. She doesn't kick him out right away, but she makes some, pretty standard issue anti-mutant kind of noises, walks away.
She's not reporting taxes on that payment. So the
Probably
$40 is it's all cash.
Mm-hmm.
She probably prefers that.
I don't have that kind of experience, Ruben. I will trust to your spidey senses there. So during this exchange, Angelo, he's also on the phone with Paige, who's in Ireland. He tells her that he's left Los Angeles for Chicago. Paige asked if he moved because of the fires, and that was kind of an interesting little topical reference.
Yeah.
Because the LA fires only happened like 2 months ago.
Yep.
Neat. Probably that was added to the dialogue later in the game after the art was done, I'm guessing. I don't know the timeline on these Infinity comics, but it seems like something that, would be neat to kind of toss
Very
that
timely,
in there.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also, it puts it in our current timeline. Not our universe, but lining up with things happening in the real world. Always kind of fun.
Yeah.
And since we've mentioned Paige, let's pop over to Ireland and see what she's up to. At the end of the last chapter, we saw her in a self-mutant-hating kind of mood, where she ripped off her own face to reveal one based on someone named C.C. Werblowski, who I guess is like the 616 version of a Kardashian. In this chapter, it's kind of weird because she's back to looking like herself again.
That was the only bit that irked me. I was like, so you went back and ripped your face off again? Why?
I guess. I'm sure it's just so that if you pick up just this chapter, you see the face change happen.
Yeah, and you know who it is.
It did go back and forth oddly.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone's jumping into the Infinity comic here in chapter 15, but if you did, you would get to see the face change. And I guess it's a newly revealed, well, not a new power exactly, but a new use of Husk's power to impersonate someone else's face.
Mm-hmm.
I think usually she rips her skin off and it's something functional, right? It's metal or, tough skin, something like that.
Yeah.
From what I gather, this is the first time where she's using it as a disguise. That's kind of neat. So Paige now looks like this Cece chick. She walks into Doyle's pub, the same pub that Banshee visited last chapter. And it's kind of fun because in this chapter, we see that the windows are all boarded up because they haven't been fixed yet since Banshee shattered them. And the glassware inside the pub is different too. It's all red. Looks like the big plastic cups you used to get at Pizza Hut, if you're old enough to remember those.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just a nice little touch of continuity. Nobody calls attention to it, but it's there, and it made me happy to see it. Once we're inside the pub, the first thing we hear is a TV news broadcast about Charles Xavier escaping from prison. And that is very interesting because it is a surprise X-Manhunt crossover.
Yeah.
And it also proves that this story is happening contemporaneously with the rest of the main X books.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of batted that back and forth a couple times. Is this before? Is this after? Does it not matter? But this says, hey, it's happening right in the same now.
Yeah, I like the way they handled that, just it being on TV.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be super tied in, but I always enjoy this seeming a little bit bigger by doing that.
Yeah, it's good to feel like it's a connected universe and all the writers are kind of paying attention to what's going on elsewhere.
I do think it's a bummer that they didn't put it on the promo of the tie-ins. They could have had this as the same level as Exceptional, right? Whatever they called that.
I like the surprise. And when this does come out in a trade paperback, well, or maybe they'll put this chapter in the X-Manhunt trade paperback. Probably not, but they reprint these scrolling comics on paper sometimes. So Paige is there inside that pub. And after the news broadcast, she kind of checks in with the current gossip, which conveniently is all about Banshee and herself. Spoiler, they're not very popular with this crowd. One of the guys says that the new gal hanging out at Cassidy Keep is a puka, which is an Irish word for a shape-shifting fairy or goblin. And it's a fun word. Have you heard that word before, Ruben?
No, I just thought maybe it was mean slang again.
I thought so too. I actually went and Googled it before I scrolled down and saw they explain it in the work. And then I remembered I actually have heard that word before because there's an old black and white Jimmy Stewart movie called Harvey. Ever hear of that?
Mm-mm.
He's a guy who everybody think that he's crazy because he tells them that he sees his friend Harvey.
The giant rabbit, yeah.
The giant rabbit.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yep. And he always says that Harvey is a puka. So I presume it's the same thing here. So that's kind of fun. Paige in the pub there, she plays along, doesn't let on that she is this puka they're talking about. And she orders, well, what would you order, Ruben, if you're in a pub in Ireland? What would you order? Not coffee, not allowed. What would you order?
I actually would not order the Guinness. I would look for, what's local, and I'd probably just say what's on tap, and then I'd just get that.
I think the first beer I had in Ireland, I would probably order a Guinness, just because I would. But she does order a Guinness. A bartender pours her a beer, but it's all yellow and fizzy looking. Oh no, Ruben! I know coloring mistakes happen.
Yes, it's a dark beer, very clearly.
So I don't know if there was a change, if Philip Sevi or Michael Bartolo, they didn't know what a Guinness looks like, but wow, yeah, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, the art probably called for a different beer, and then probably the last second some editor was like, people won't know what that is.
Oh, people know what Guinness is.
No, I know, but I'm saying it was probably originally written as something else, and then they changed it after the art was done.
Could be. Yeah. I did see. I posted this image to Slack, and let's see, who was I have it written down here. Yada yada yada. Oh, Dan in the Slack. His save here was, well, she's speaking with an American accent, right? Because she's from America.
So they can't tell.
Yeah, the British pardon me, I'm going to get kicked out. The Irish bartender figures, well, this American person doesn't know the difference.
So
I'll pour her a glass of Bud Light or whatever and tell her it's a Guinness. Maybe that's it. I like that explanation. Anyway, with that bit in the pub over, we go back to Chicago, and let's check in with that human construction worker named Nick. He's the one who's lost his job because of the arrival of the mutants. He has legal child support issues. He's basically just been radicalized against the mutants because of his own circumstances. You feel bad for him, even though, he shouldn't be doing the things he's doing.
I mean, I feel a little bad for him, but it's kind of annoying in these stories that, one thing goes wrong for somebody and suddenly they're like happy to go on a rampage and kill the people. It's like, you lost your job. I get it, dude. Go get another one. That sucks. But be an adult.
I'm certainly not supporting Nick's actions here, but in story terms, if it's between this and bad guy does bad things just because he's bad, I prefer this. Give has one reason.
Touche. I'll give you that.
So Nick here, he agrees to meet up with somebody from the Flat Scanner Forum. We've seen this teased last chapter.
I like the way this plays out a little better. Like his motivation, I just kind of rolled my eyes, but I did like the, talk about how he thought he was on some anonymous forum, and the guy was like, yeah, whatever.
So this guy, they meet up at Millennium Park, which is in front of that giant, shiny, mirrored bean.
Yep.
Which is kind of weird, because if I was going to do something kind of nefarious, I don't think I'd do it in the most famous public place in Chicago. But, for comic book purposes, it's fun to see the bean in the comic. So naturally, that's why it's here.
I mean, you also get maybe the whole hide in plain sight kind of thing. Like, you hear that sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Could be.
Like, if you're trying to really stay anonymous, a great way to do that is to get into a crowd.
Right. If you're sneaking around in a dark alley somewhere, people are going to wonder why you're in the dark alley.
Yeah, why you're in the dark alley.
We'll go with that. I like it. I also like how this Flat Scanner guy is clearly taking advantage of Nick.
Yep.
Right? He's talking like, oh, I'm going to help you out. We're all on the same side. But obviously, this group is taking advantage of people down on their luck, people who have suffered because of, or who think they've suffered because of mutants.
Yeah.
And it's not in Nick's best interest to participate here.
Yeah, and I dug when he was like, I'm not going to tell you who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought all that was pretty good.
Yeah, he expects things to go badly for Nick, and he doesn't want Nick to be able to give his name away, clearly. Yep. And what he does give to Nick is a briefcase. The briefcase contains, it looks like a Star Trek-style hypo spray injector, plus a vial of glowing green liquid with a label that says cesium-137 gamma isotope.
Yeah.
Now, cesium-137 is a real thing, a radioactive byproduct of nuclear fission. It does undergo both beta decay and gamma decay. I don't think it really has the effect shown in the comic, though. But we'll get to that in a scene or so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, we'll get to it right now because Nick goes home. He injects the stuff into his bicep, and he right away turns into a Hulk, like a full-on green, super muscly, able to leap tall buildings, Incredible Hulk kind of guy. Is it really that easy to become a Hulk in the 616? I thought it was more complicated than that. Like Bruce Banner got really lucky that he didn't die, sort of.
Yes. Yeah, Sasquatch also is a Gamma, Gamma product, but there was a whole big deal about how it was like so amazing that another scientist was able to, have a non-lethal transformation based on gamma radiation. I mean, sometimes they do that, and it's just I kind of get annoyed about it, right? Like, this technology should not be so easily, reproduced on the black market.
Yeah, I guess the flat scanners figured it out, and I'm sure this will not be a permanent, well, you're just like Bruce Banner now situation, right?
Yeah, it's got to be like unstable.
Wear off,
he'll probably be unstable and die. Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah, something like that. But that's how this chapter ends, and it ends with some really great art.
Yeah.
Especially that vertically stretched final panel of like a hulked out Nick leaping over the Chicago skyline.
Yeah. Looks
really amazingly good for this kind of a story, this digital first. So great work on the art. And I thought this was
I'm a big fan of these digital first stories that feel like they actually are meaningful. They don't feel like a waste of your time, right? Like, feels like this is not just a cheap little side story.
Yeah, it is happening at the same time. It is happening with not the A-list of A-list characters, but, real characters who we've seen in real books and we're interested in, and having effects that spin out from events of the other books and that probably won't cause major ripples in other books, but it could. And it's kind of fun to read that. So, yeah, plus this was just a more interesting chapter on its own than last week's. Last week felt like, okay, we'll redo chapter 1 and kind of string things along. This one had actual plot developments, and that was fun.
Yeah.
So if you're not reading the Infinity comic, as usual, we'll say, hey, you should be reading the Infinity comic. It's pretty darn good. Now let's move on to our first actual published on paper comic of the week, which is X-Force number 9.
Number 9.
Legacy 299. It's X-Manhunt chapter 6, and it's called The Shapely Value. Now, I Googled that because that's what I do.
It's like an exhaustive deep dive.
A shapely value,
it's like an exhaustive deep dive.
Apparently, a shapely value, according to Wikipedia, has to do with deciding how much credit or blame every member of a team should get when a team gets an outcome. Like you're doing a group project, who gets the credit for doing well in the group project? And I wasn't able to figure out what that really has to do with this issue. Any guesses what Jeff Thorne meant when he titled it Shapely Value?
No. Sometimes I think these titles are just like, oh, what did I read in a book last week?
Right.
And he just like added in there. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Our old friend Chris, who the first co-host of this podcast, he would talk about how, he must have read the S volume of the encyclopedia that week. Yeah. And he just got the shapely values. That's why I put it in. And Jeff Thorne seems like a smart guy. I bet he had a reason. I just can't figure it out. I wonder if maybe my stupid answer is that he had a different issue written before he found out he had to write a tie-in to X-Manhunt, and the title tied into the old issue. Which, again, not a good idea, but that's the only idea I have.
Yeah.
It is written by Jeff Thorne, art by Marcus Toe, colors by Eric Arciniega, letters by Joe Caramagna. And Ruben, say what you will about this volume of X-Force, but Jeff Thorne knows how to do an event tie-in.
Yeah, lots of stuff happens in this one.
Stuff happens. He understood the assignment. It makes sense with the overall story. It feels like he knew what was going on in the previous books, right? Like whether he read the scripts of them or otherwise knew what was happening.
Man, the bar is so low and you're like, wow, it's amazing. He actually knows what's going on in the X universe.
And even though he only has this and one more issue in his whole run, he basically puts his own story completely on hold to have Sage do X-Manhunt stuff.
Yeah.
Because there are two entirely separate story threads here with no crossover at all. We have Sage doing, like I said, all the X-Manhunt stuff, while Forge and the rest of the gang continue to fight La Diabla, and that character who looks like Colossus, but obviously isn't Colossus, and that hairy kaiju guy that the recap is now calling Rampage.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get the fight part out of the way first. It won't take very long. This fight started last issue, is still in progress at the end of this issue, and as far as I can tell, nothing really momentous happens during the fight in this issue. It feels like these scenes are only here kind of just to remind regular readers of X-Force, hey, this fight's still going on, and we'll get back to it. Don't worry, it's still happening.
Yeah, Betsy attempts to fight La Diabla, but apparently La Diabla is too powerful.
Yep, to no particular effect. We do see the fake Colossus does clearly have a thing against Tank, probably because Tank's going to be revealed to be the real Colossus next issue. I still think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Fake Colossus turns his hand into a sword, which I'm pretty sure is not a thing that real Colossus can do. He does speak Russian, though.
Yes.
He says to Tank in Russian, "U nas jest svoj tanец," which means something like, we have our own dance to perform.
Mm.
Okay, Jeff Thorne can use Google Translate. That's nice. At the end of the issue, La Diabla reminds us that her deal is that she thinks she's helping Forge become his best, truest self.
Omega Forge.
Omega Forge. Maybe he'll get his own cocoon. Cocoons for everybody. Her closing line is, "We are not the problem. We are the solution." And I say like that because the solution is given extra emphasis in the word bubble, like it's the name of her secret organization, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be it. That's terrible. Their new team.
I mean, there's not much time to set up that new villain because, again, only one more issue.
Yeah, and I guess they kind of, if this is the name of their team, the solution appears to have, won in the little skirmish.
Yeah. If so, then I'd say, Ruben, the solution is pretty diluted. Oops, that's not the one. There we go. There's the right drop. Okay. There's not a whole lot of La Diabla in this issue, which is fine by me because La Diabla is La Aburrida, which I can use Google Translate too, and that's how it tells me to say the boring one. She is just dull. So maybe she would have grown into something else given time, but not going to be any time. All right, leaving the fight, now over to the real reason that this issue exists, for Sage to help out Professor X. At the end of the last issue of X-Force, we saw Sage get a mental distress call. And we weren't explicitly told it was Professor X, but we figured out, I think you figured out, it's gotta be. She was already in the process of putting some of her resources together in order to assist X-Force in their fight, but now she pivots, uses those same resources to assist Xavier. And she is very, very loyal to Xavier in this issue. Thorne goes out of his way to call attention to it, which, again, I appreciate that he calls attention to it and not just has it happen.
Yeah, and I don't know Sage well enough to know about her relationship, but in my mind, this makes it more interesting. I'm like, maybe I need to go check out the Sage-Xavier relationship.
I looked up some of this, and there's a flashback to the first meeting between Sage and Xavier in Extreme X-Men number 44. Now, Extreme X-Men is the title that was created for Chris Claremont after he kind of got shoved aside when Grant Morrison came in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of the final arc of that. So this is very much at the end of Chris Claremont's time doing X-Men stuff for Marvel.
Mm.
So yeah, that's Extreme X-Men number 44 from 2004, if you want to check that out. So Sage, for various reasons, is all in on helping Charles. She calls in a favor from a teleporter she knows, a guy named John Wraith, also known as Kestrel. Now, John Wraith, he comes from Larry Hama's Wolverine run. He does eventually in the story become a Christian preacher, which is why Sage calls him Pastor. He was supposed to have died in a 2010 issue of Wolverine, killed by Logan himself, who was at the time possessed by a demon. That happens to Logan sometimes.
Did he get drowned in a puddle?
I think he was just basically, snicked to death, as it goes with Wolverine.
Yeah.
So it's certainly possible he was resurrected on Krakoa. That's always a thing that can happen.
Yeah.
There's another possibility, though, because in this issue he says that he owes Sage because she rescued him when he was, quote, left for dead, woke up on somebody's torture table getting experimented on. Now, John Wraith's body, after he was killed by Logan, that body was taken and experimented on by a character named Contagion in a 2011 series called Wolverine: The Best There Is. So I read this as Jeff Thorne doing a retcon saying John Wraith didn't actually die after being stabbed by Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he survived and was rescued by Sage from Contagion.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it doesn't particularly matter. He's here now, and he really owes Sage a favor. And Ruben, this is where we find out that, yeah, I was completely wrong. It wasn't Forge who showed up at the end of X Factor. It was this guy. It was John Wraith, was the masked guy.
Yeah.
Showed up at the end of X Factor. He tased Cyclops and teleported away with Charles and that egg.
What's inside the fucking egg?
Oh, Simon's a little guest host this time. I was getting a little envious, Ruben, because Jim talks to all these people now on the DC podcast.
Yeah.
And, I enjoy talking to you. No offense intended at all. It's nice to have somebody else. So I have Simon sitting in. And,
So Simon's reading X-Men comics now?
Oh, he can't get enough of them.
Is that why he's drunk Simon these days?
Loves them. I mean, it makes it go a little better, and I'm sure he knows what Guinness looks like. That's one thing. So, Simon, I know you're really, really curious.
What's inside the fucking egg?
We'll get to it. Maybe you were drinking when you read this issue because you should remember because it happens. But moving forward, they all meet up. We get Sage, Wraith, Charles, and the egg.
Wait, what the fuck is inside that giant egg?
Easy, Simon. My gosh, you're not a friendly drunk. Got to take it a little easy. All these people and that thing I'm not going to mention, they meet up in Mexico City outside one of the Mad Thinker's toy boxes, which is a name that was only used, I think, once for a Mad Thinker safe house and was in a book written by, who do you think that book was written by, Ruben?
Claremont?
Jeff Thorne.
Oh, Jeff Thorne. Okay.
So he's calling back to his own stuff.
I should have done that.
He did. It was a series called Solo. He actually wrote it with Jerry Duggan. So the two of them wrote it together. It was 2016. And Charles here does look totally ridiculous carrying that giant golden egg, right? It does not look dignified. I can see why we never saw people carry them around on Krakoa. It totally ruins the mystique. It looks dumb. So the security system resists Sage entering, but she claims that the Thinker owes her a prize. Now, I couldn't find a reference to that. Maybe it happened in some Jeff Thorne thing, but could be newly created for this issue. Sage gets around. She could have won a bet against the Thinker at some point. She overwrites the security system by quoting a Lewis Carroll poem at it. The poem is called Dreamland, and I looked it up, of course, and one line of the poem does mention warriors, saints, and sages. I'm guessing why that's Jeff Thorne had sage reference to it, because of the sages in it.
Mm-hmm.
So they enter the toy box. Charles gets ready to hatch his egg.
What the fuck is inside that giant egg?
I'm curious myself. And while he does this, Wraith and Sage have a conversation. Wraith brings up Charles's psychic contagion problem. Again, I love that this is actually mentioned here and dealt with. And Wraith says, I felt it as soon as I grabbed him, like his mind's chipping away inside my head. Again, we don't need to do anything else with that in this issue. We don't do it. We don't have to. But just having it mentioned, makes me feel like things are clicking, things are being paid attention to. It works.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that we're finally getting this whole idea of the psychic bleed being a thing. I really wish it was better spelled out to begin with.
Yeah, I get it. It just took one little mention in one panel of this book to make it be completely okay. Have something happen, mention like that in NYX, and I would not have complained at all.
Yep.
Another line from Sage we should talk about. She says, "You told us resurrection was just for mutants." And here I think the continuity is a little off by Jeff Thorne here because, it started out that way. But we all know that Captain America was resurrected.
Yeah.
We know that after the Judgment Day event, there was a whole program called the Phoenix Foundation that was barely ever mentioned again, but it existed. And Sage should know about this. So I know Thorne wants to get into hinting that this is not going to be a mutant, but Sage should know better.
Yeah, by this point, it should be well understood that they could resurrect whoever the hell they wanted to resurrect.
Another bit between Sage and Xavier. He asks her, "Where is your telepathy?" And she says that she deleted it in her last system update, which was also how she got rid of her alcohol problem. Boy, what a convenient way of beating addiction. I wish I could get rid of all my bad habits just by, updating my firmware.
Yeah.
That'd be super handy. It's
I
kind
thought
of
that was
funny.
cool, though. I thought that was a little cool thing. I knew that Sage was like the person with the computer brain, but I never thought of this idea of like updating yourself. It's kind of a neat
It
concept.
Makes perfect sense. It can also explain any personality differences between this series and Krakoan X-Force issues. She just updated. It's an interesting juxtaposition because over in West Coast Avengers, we just saw Firestar with a similar problem, she can't just run a software update. She actually checks herself into rehab. So some mutants have certain advantages.
Yes.
So talking about her firmware, Sage says that she's now on version 10.6. And when she says this, Wraith comes back with Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, which is both a very funny comeback and also is the verse that says, it's the one from the song, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, which I take as John Wraith saying, hey, enough chit-chat, let's get on with it, which I'm sure I'm sure that Simon...
Like, what the fuck is inside that giant egg?
Right. It's a much nicer way of saying
what the fuck is inside that egg, yes.
So Xavier gets on with it. He does whatever needs to be done to make the egg hatch. And the character that emerges is Lilandra Neramani, former Shi'ar Majestrix, Xavier's dead wife, the mother of his space daughter. Now, in retrospect, this probably should have been one of our top 5 guesses.
Yeah.
Right? It makes perfect sense. He wants to save Xandra, his daughter. Mm-hmm. Why not bring back Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have any theories on what the two of them are going to do? Any guesses?
Yeah, not sure. I mean, they're going to go into space, obviously, but I'm not sure what her presence, like how that really improves anything. Although maybe I guess it just means if these rebels have taken over the Shi'ar, that people instead align with Lilandra.
Yeah, maybe she'll be made Empress or Majestrix again.
That's my assumption.
Don't know. I've seen some speculation that this is in part getting ready for Hickman's Imperial series that's going to do other things in the cosmic realm, which I think might be giving Marvel too much credit for planning ahead, but we'll see. So Sage gives the happy couple a vehicle for transport. I'm not sure if this little thing is enough to take them all the way into Shi'ar space, but that's a problem for the Omega issue.
Yeah.
There is going to be one more issue of this series, and presumably Sage and John Wraith are going to pop down to South America, join in on the fight against La Diabla. Not a lot of suspense, Ruben, on which side is going to win here in the final issue, but it remains to be seen just how and if the whole team is going to be disbanded at the end of the title. Do you have any other expectations or hopes or guesses about what's going to happen in X-Force number 10?
We'll finally figure out who Tank is, and I think the team will most likely stay together, although the book will not continue.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'm definitely with you on Tank. I'm going to guess that the team's going to be disbanded. That something's going to happen that says they're going to go all the way annoyed at Forge. Something's going to make them go their separate ways. I do wonder if we're going to get Surge back, right? Because Surge, who is currently dead,
is Surge featured in the cover or the whatever the list of characters in the summary
of this month?
She's still there.
Absolutely, she is.
I just double checked. Yeah, she's still there. Okay.
She's been listed last in the list of the characters on the credits page ever since she was in the book, and ever since she died, she's there with a big yellow X over her face, which keeping her around made me think, oh, are they going to resurrect her somehow? And I'm going to say yes. I think that in X-Force number 10, some sort of magic juju is going to happen, and we're going to get Surge back, and then they'll be able to take the X off her picture.
Yeah,
that's my guess. But as an issue of X-Force, this comic didn't do a whole lot, right? Just enough to remind us that the rest of the team kind of still exists. But as an issue of the X-Manhunt event, I thought it was pretty darn good.
Yep.
And I think you're kind of on board there?
Yeah, definitely. I was here for the X-Manhunt and not really the X-Force.
Indeed. Loved all the connections to continuity, bringing John Wraith back as a teleporter, Mad Thinker's safe houses, all that stuff. Having Lilandra be revealed as the person who was inside that egg.
Like, what the fuck is inside that giant egg?
It was Lilandra, Simon. Come on. Pay attention. It makes me more optimistic to see just how this whole X-Manhunt situation is going to turn out next week in that Omega issue.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give X-Force number 9 8.5 out of 10. Well done, Jeff Thorne. Good stuff. When he's on, he's really on. He's just interested, I think, in things that I'm not always interested in. But when they overlap, he does good stuff. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis. Reading this issue, I was like, oh, if this was what we'd been getting for 9 issues, I maybe would have been more into the series.
Absolutely. You're going to give it a number?
Yeah, I'll go with 8.5 with you.
8.5.
I also like the cover for issue 10. It's got Cable and a few of the other old X-Force people on it.
Oh, okay. I haven't looked. It's going to be the X-Force issue number 300 as well. So I haven't looked ahead at if there's going to be extra stuff in it. Maybe there will. I'll have to check that out. But now let's move on to our next book of the show, which is Exceptional X-Men number 7, written by Eve L. Ewing, art by Carmen Carnero, colors by Nolan Woodard, letters by Travis Lanham. And this issue is not itself a chapter of X-Man Hunt, but it does have the trade dress, and it is being marketed as a tie-in with the words collateral damage on it. So let's get the X-Man Hunt bit out of the way first. It's just 2 pages. Bobby Drake, that's Iceman to you and me, Bobby Drake bursts into the clubhouse and says, "Holy crap, Professor X has escaped from prison." Words to that effect. And Ruben, that's it.
Yeah.
That is the tie-in.
I know, I'm telling you, Astonishing X-Men should have gotten the collateral damage marquee because it's about the same level of integration.
So in the art, there is a shadow that very clearly looks like Charles in a Cerebro helmet. I don't know if that's supposed to mean anything, like, oh, he's spying on them psychically, or if Carmen Carnero just put it in there for thematic reasons, probably the latter. The cast does talk about this for a page. Trista, Bronze, she doesn't know who Charles Xavier is.
Yeah, I like that. Although, I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of like it because she's just kind of a kid. She acts like a kid. She, if you told me she doesn't pay attention to the news or world events, I'd say fine.
Yes.
But then she says, we know Krakoa, Thao sends us like 10 videos about mutant politics a day.
Yeah.
First off, kind of bugged me that it's videos and not articles, right? And they're like all TikTok videos too, kids these days.
Yeah. Well, you've watched like any of those late night shows, right? Where it's like interviewing average Americans, and it's always sort of shocking how little they know of
the jaywalking was the old version.
So I was kind of okay with this.
But again, because I think they're kind of having it both ways, because Thao is seriously into politics, sending videos. And Ruben, how many videos about specifically Krakoan politics do you think you'd have to watch before the name Charles Xavier comes up?
I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't mean it's registering right with some of these people.
I guess. Bugged me a little bit. Not a big deal, but yeah, I thought they were kind of having it both ways. But yeah, that's all the X-Man Hunt content there. I hope none of our listeners bought this issue just because you thought you needed to have the complete X-Man Hunt story, because you kind of got ripped off.
Well, I mean, they kind of signaled it, right, by not making it a part X of the story.
That's true. They didn't call it a chapter, which if they actually call this a chapter of X-Man Hunt, that would be super annoying.
They were really playing it both ways, right? Like they're trying to make it seem like it's related, but covering their tracks to make sure nobody can say like, oh,
like
you
last
made it sound
week,
like this was essential.
Last week, Tom Brevoort in his blog said, it's just a Red Sky crossover, meaning it's not super related. But again, he said that last week, well after Final Order cutoff. So already had your money. Moving on to the rest of the issue, which is actually pretty good. It's one of the better issues of Exceptional X-Men, even aside from that. So if you did buy this, you got a pretty good issue.
Yeah, the pace is starting to pick up. We're finally seeing a conflict.
Indeed, for sure.
If it picks up momentum, this could become a book that I'd saw on my radar, but not quite there yet.
It starts off because that scene we just talked about is kind of in the middle. It starts off with a real loss of momentum because we have a multi-page montage of Emma thinking back over the course of her life. And she's doing the breaking the fourth wall thing, addressing readers directly. Eve Ewing likes that, I guess, better than just narration boxes or old-fashioned thought bubbles. Just has the character talk to us. Not really my favorite, but it's consistent. It's what this book is doing. I guess I can roll with it. Emma shows us some photographs of her past romances, Cyclops, Tony Stark, and Namor. Did you know about Emma and Namor having a past?
No.
Now, it makes sense from his perspective. I mean, he's into blondes. We know that. Namor loves the blondes. And this is a thing that's been in comics at least once before. Emma reveals to Scott in 2009 in an issue called Dark X-Men: The Confession that, she had an affair with Namor. But Emma says that her real, truest love was Krakoa itself, and not in a kinky, tentacle, tree-shaped way. She just really liked living there. We even get a double-page spread that's a callback to the giant party at the end of House of X, which looks nice. Now, I think it looked even nicer in the original House of X. I don't know whether we needed to spend 2 pages on this picture and like 5 pages on this montage flashback, but that's the way e-viewing is telling the story, and I can understand why people get frustrated with it, but we're in issue 7. This is what the book is.
Yeah.
At this point, you got to kind of accept it or just not read it.
Yeah. I really don't like this, the art of Emma. It always looks so weird to me. I think it's maybe the blue lips. Just strange looking.
In general, I'm not crazy about the way Carmen Carnero draws faces.
Yeah, maybe
faces
that's
in
it.
general just a turn off to me, which for a book that's really all about character relationships and emotions,
Yeah.
that's kind of a rough part to be not on board with. Like the one after the page after the Krakoa double page spread, if you look at Emma, she just looks kind of homely, which again, not great.
Emma you would expect.
Again, not to my taste. So from this montage, we cut to another sparring match in the exceptional clubhouse. This one between Bronze, that's Trista, and Melee, who is Thao. And Trista is clearly winning. Weird, because Thao should be able to phase right through the tendril attacks, but I guess she's having trouble focusing.
Yeah.
Trista punches Thao right in the chin, leaving a bruise. And notably, Axo, that's Alex, he's not here. Instead, he's off with his new best BFF forever, Mr. Sheldon Sinister Xenos. Now, we are going to get the full official reveal in this issue, so we can pretty much start just calling him Mr. Sinister.
Yeah.
But Alex, he's still completely enthralled by Sinister. Thinks he's just the greatest, the best role model, partially because Sinister keeps praising Alex for the most minor of things, like helping him with his computer, and partially just for being another public mutant who doesn't look like a regular human. Very big thing for Alex. Alex does join the Fight Club clubhouse already in progress, but just as everyone is about to leave, and they're pretty annoyed at how late he is. Alex lies about where he was and why he wasn't there, and then he kind of creates a fake argument to give himself an excuse to storm out in a huff, which, as far as teenage dynamic character stuff goes, pretty accurate. You know, I can sense the verisimilitude here. I have teenagers. I'm around teenagers. This is how teenagers act. And this is when that scene, Bobby, of coming in with the Professor X news, this is when that happens.
Yeah.
But if we follow Axo out the door, we see that he seeks consolation from 2 sources. The first one being this person he's been texting with. It's through that online game that's been mentioned, and his chat partner is @JustSophie, with his own handle being @TarnishedMoodRing. And Ruben, I can't remember, did we bring this up when we read NYX, that these two have been chatting?
No.
Because it did come out, and people figured out when they saw Tarnished Moodring talking to Sophie in that book, yeah, that must be Axo. Yeah. I don't think we mentioned out loud, but it is a little bit of continuity between these 2 books, which is kind of fun. They've been having a little online chat.
Yeah.
I wonder if this will give Sophie somewhere to go after NYX wraps up next month.
I should think she'll come over here.
I don't know, pop her over here, join the cast of Exceptional. I think she'd fit right in.
Yeah. I guess that'd work, right? You have like some Emma connection, right? Some drama there.
Sophie's fallen out with the rest of her sisters who are still tied in with the whole empath crowd.
Yeah.
So maybe Sophie and Emma can have little mother-daughter time.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the worst. You'd also have then like an experienced teenage mutant, right? That can be the
kind of in between,
role model, I guess.
Yeah, in between where Emma and Kitty are and where the new kids are. Kind of like somewhere to kind of translate between the older and younger groups. It'll work. Yeah. So that's one place that Alex goes to for consolation, and the other one is, of course, his new boss, Sheldon Mr. Xenos Sinister. And Xenos invites Alex down into his private lab, saying, "Hey, you're in the inner circle now. I trust you." Xenos explains to Alex that Verite is not just about DNA. It also, quote, holds the emotional signatures of countless lives, and is the closest science can get to capturing the human soul, which sounds a whole lot like what Cerebro was doing on Krakoa.
Yeah.
And I certainly, Mr. Sinister was on Krakoa. He got all the DNA stuff there. Maybe he was copying some technology too. I think that really checks out.
Yeah. And he also saw what's possible, right? You could imagine he'd try to create it on his own without, all the other
without all those
elements.
Other mutants. Yeah. He thinks he's at least as good as any 5 mutants, and he might be right. So Alex gets freaked out, tries to leave the lab, but the door is locked behind him. Xenos is not going to let him leave. Whatever his nefarious plan is, it requires Alex's special gifts. And now a little bit of a weird thing happens, Ruben. We see Xenos remove his suit jacket, and then we cut to, it's basically Xenos' own point of view looking towards Alex. We only see Xenos' shadow, and in his shadow, he's reaching up to the top of his head. And in the next panel, we reverse again to Alex's point of view, and it's full-on Mr. Sinister. No horns, complete Krakoan-era splendor, cape and everything.
Yep.
How did that transition happen?
I know. That's the only part I kind of rolled my eyes. So I was like, oh, it's fine because it's Sinister, right? Maybe he has some shape-shifting power at this point.
What is he wearing? A whole full-body latex suit with, with the cape on underneath?
Yeah.
That's all I can figure. But very silly, but it's dramatic, and Mr. Sinister loves his drama, so we'll go with it.
I also laughed at the awkward uncomfortableness, right, of the taking off the suit. I was like, oh, is this going to turn into a bad touch story?
Oh no, yeah, it's going to be like that episode of Different Strokes.
Because he locked the door, right? He's like, oh, you're not going anywhere. I was like, oh man, your boss is about to do something real bad, and he kind of does, right? Just reveals that he's Mr. Sinister, but.
I did like the bit where Alex tries to use his empathic powers on Sinister.
Yeah.
And Sinister says, oh, the parts of my being that could respond to an empathic probe are long gone.
Yeah.
I couldn't emote for you if I tried, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That part was really good. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, very nice.
As somebody to be immune to these powers, we've already... I mean, that was one of the key things with Sinister, right? Is before he was a mutant, he had, killed his emotions. Or Apocalypse that killed his emotions.
Killed his emotion. There's all these different cloned versions of him with different characteristics. Which clone of Sinister this could be. All sorts of possibilities. So
I'm also excited.
I was ready to believe that the horns were real, but the horns turned out to just be an affectation.
Yeah. I'm also excited for the next scene, which is going to be who are you? That's going to piss him off so much.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
His teenagers are not going to know who he is.
If they haven't heard of Charles Xavier, he's not going to know who Mr. Sinister is. That's good stuff. Yeah. I'm enjoying just imagining that scene. Very nice. So, yeah, not the most efficient comic ever. That Emma montage, I think, could have just been skipped. X-Manhunt crossover, barely there. We do get the full return of Mr. Sinister, an actual villain with an actual villainous plot.
Yeah.
Boy, that's what this book needed really badly.
Yep.
Having Alex fall for Sinister, be taken in, makes perfect sense with his character. We know what he's looking for. We know what he thinks his world is lacking. He thinks he's found a role model. Role model turns out to be Mr. Sinister. I don't think we've all been exactly there, but it's a metaphor for things we've probably gone through where somebody we thought is the greatest turns out to be not so much. I complained a little bit about Carmen Carnero's faces. I think her Sheldon Xenos and Mr. Sinister images are really nice. So both of them, even when he's trying to be, I'm just this kindly, tech mogul who wants the best for the world, and I'm wearing this sweater. I think that looks good. And then that last page when he's got the Mr. Sinister face back on also looks good. So credit for that. This book's never going to be the high energy superhero action book that I know some people want it to be. But I think it's pretty decent at being a character drama. It's getting more towards the superhero kind of things with an actual villain.
Yeah.
And that's kind of okay. So I'm going to give this 7.3 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's good for what it is. It's not necessarily what I want it to be, but it's pretty good for what it's trying to be. How about you?
I'll just round it up to 7.5. I mean, I'm a big Sinister stan, right? So as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, you got my attention. And I do like Access powers. I think I've said that before. I think it's an interesting character. Not too overpowered, but it can do some interesting things.
Can do interesting things, and it's an excuse for a teenager with his personality to have that kind of power. The interplay of character and power has a lot of possibilities to it.
Yeah. So I'm excited. And, Sinister and Emma have had a lot of issues, right? Especially having just been on the council together and, the betrayal that he had.
Kitty as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's shaping up finally. I mean, I hate to say it. I added this title and then I dropped this title. I may be adding it back.
Doing the exceptional X-Men hokey pokey.
Yep.
Shake it all about. Okay, moving on, leaving our X-Manhunt stuff behind entirely and going into Magic number 3, Hacks, written by Ashley Allen, art by Germán Peralta, colors by Arthur Hesley, and letters by Ariana Mayer. Now, Ruben, in the previous issue, Magic fought some demons at a Tokyo music club and briefly slipped into her Darkchild form. At the end of that issue, a portal opened beneath her feet and she fell into a realm controlled by a demon named Liminal. That demon that she and this kid named Cal are trying to keep from escaping a seal. Now, as we open this issue, Magic tells us that she's been trapped in this new realm for weeks, which at first made me wonder, hey, isn't she on the X-Men? Wouldn't they have noticed that she's missing? But later on, turns out this is like a Narnia type thing. Time moves differently in this realm, so that was explained. The first 10 pages or so of this issue, pretty standard set of fights. Magic versus constructs created by Liminal to challenge her. Constructs include characters from Magic's past, a cat-like Limbo version of Kitty Pryde, the demon Belasco, stuff like that. I did think it was interesting that the constructs are all in black and white, while the environment and Magic herself all in color. As an artistic choice, I thought that was kind of cool. Now, Magic eventually wounds Liminal, and that triggers a speech where he explains his backstory. Ruben, I can't remember. Have we discussed what the word liminal really means? Maybe briefly?
Yeah, probably briefly, but lay it on me.
I'll give it again. The idea of a liminal space is an in-between space. A place you don't go to on purpose, you just kind of pass through on the way somewhere else. Like airports, hallways, stairwells, empty parking lots. Those are called liminal spaces. And it's become kind of an online thing in recent years. I'm sure there's a subreddit for it. For people to talk about how these liminal spaces have a particular creepy vibe to them. Now, what that creepy vibe has to do with this particular demon, I couldn't really tell you. But he does say that the growth of liminal spaces in the real world is why he's grown powerful enough to maybe start breaking out of his prison. That was all right. I would like to see, if he's going to be called liminal, I want to see him have something to do with these in-between spaces more directly. But we got something. We also get his past. He says that when he was just a kid, he was used as a sacrifice to a demon by what looks like a coven of witches. Now, the time period here, I think, is intentionally vague. Could be back in the 1400s, could be a group of cosplaying weirdos a week and a half ago. Hard to say. Whenever it was, these people tried to ritually murder the kid in exchange for power, but I guess instead, the kid is the one who got the power?
Seems
is
like
that how you read this scene?
Yep.
Yeah,
It seems like he got possessed, is my guess.
Yeah, I don't think it worked out well for the Coven. He's the one that got the power. And now we get one panel that just says, I, and this is liminal speaking, I effectively brought all life under my control until a society of mages bound me. Whoa, dude. All life was under your control?
We never heard of you.
That just seems way too big, right? This is the first arc villain of an Ilyana Rasputin series. It's going to be a demon who was in charge of all life on Earth, all life in the universe. Let's tone that down. Let's make him, he was in charge of, he took over a village. He took over a region.
Yeah.
It just felt way too big.
Or like early colonial America or something like that.
Yeah, and we don't even see any of this. We only jump right from like when he's a little kid, first becomes the demon, and then we jump to where he's been put in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So we're told in between he was super duper powerful, but it only happens in one speech bubble. And we find out that, until he collects enough mutant DNA to bust himself out, he's going to be stuck here. And again, I'd really like to have it explained why mutant DNA is the key.
It's better than human, yeah.
Yeah, but why would human DNA be even part of it at all? That part's very hand-wavy to me. So now we get, once again, this is very popular lately, a Kylo Ren and Rey Skywalker situation, where Liminal plays we are not so different, you and I. We should team up and rule the world. Rule all life again, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, I guess they did both have troubled childhoods, and that makes them going to be a good couple.
That's what he says.
That's what he says. Magic, not so into it, says no thanks, but is willing to listen to his offer as she figures things out.
Yeah.
And so, here's his offer. He'll allow Ilyana to leave, but first he will, quote, release the chains on the Darkchild. Doesn't mean the Darkchild will always be manifesting, just that Magic's mental barriers against the Darkchild will be down. And once Magic is back in the real world, she'll have 3 weeks to put a stop to Liminal's plan, to break the seals and escape. And if she does, Liminal will remove all traces of the Dark Child from her forever, or until the next writer takes over, whatever comes first. Now, as a storytelling concept, I think that's an okay idea, but it kind of bothers me that we've already seen Darkchild emerge twice before those barriers were removed.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, hey, why was it a thing now when it's never been a thing like in Krakoa?
Yeah.
This would have made a lot more sense story-wise if the Darkchild only comes out
Because
after
of
the
Liminal.
demon does a thing, because then there's a reason why now is different.
Yeah.
But I guess they wanted to be able to put Darkchild on the cover and in the first couple issues to get people interested. I think that must be why.
Is that what's
Story-wise,
going
it doesn't
selling
make
the
much
comics?
sense. I hear this one is selling really well.
Yeah.
Maybe people love the covers. Maybe people love the character.
Probably a little A and B.
Could be. We don't have real sales figures, but from what we know, this is doing surprisingly well. So we have Magic agree to this, makes a deal, handshake, barriers removed, zap her back to Tokyo. Cal, that kid, he's not in Tokyo anymore, but luckily she put like a magical spider tracker on him, knows that he's in Ecuador. She goes to Ecuador, finds him, and he says, hey, from my perspective, you've only been gone 3 days, not 3 weeks. But a lot of stuff has happened in 3 days. Another seal has already been broken while she was away. Ecuador is where that next seal is. And with Magic not around, in 3 days, he's already found another mutant partner to help him out. And Ruben, who is his new mutant partner?
Lay it on me. I missed that.
Oh, I thought I could get a chance to drink some tea there, but I'll tell you.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Is this Mirage?
It's Mirage,
Yep.
Danny Moonstar.
I didn't really...
With,
you thought that he found her? I thought she just kind of wandered in, but maybe she was here helping him.
Yeah, he mentions that he's got a new partner. Let me see if I can find the exact blah, 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 blah. It's in here somewhere. Edit this out, Jim.
What's inside the fucking egg?
What's inside the egg? Anyway, yeah, they're working together now. And, of course, Magic and Danny have a past. They were both part of the 1980s Chris Claremont New Mutants.
Yeah.
But Magic is not happy to see her old pal. She says in the final narration box that Danny is, quote, the last person I wanted to run into.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I found it. He says he found someone who can help us, and she left some supplies, or she left to get some supplies.
Yeah, I knew it was in there somewhere. So it is. He did do this on purpose in that time.
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
But why do you think Magic specifically doesn't want Danny around?
Unknown. I don't know their relationship too well.
My only guess is that I know Danny has like the ability to make someone's greatest fear manifest.
Mm-hmm.
That was like always her thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe Magic's greatest fear now is Darkchild. Mm-hmm. So maybe she's afraid that Danny is going to help Darkchild manifest or see that Darkchild is on the verge of manifesting.
Yeah.
Maybe just let this secret out.
Yeah.
My only guess. So that's the story. And, it's not bad. I think the storytelling here is smoother than in previous issues where I had lots of complaints.
Yeah.
I can follow everything that happens. I know, why A, B, C, D occurs in that order. The trope of the villain thinking that he and the hero should be the same and team up, kind of tired of that. Having the villain be super, super powerful, just stated and never explained, wasn't thrilled with that. But the deal with Liminal does raise the stakes, does put a ticking clock on the story. We have 3 weeks to wrap this up. And it does give us a reason why the Darkchild might be more likely to assert itself now.
Yeah.
All positive things story-wise.
Yeah. And visually, I like some of the elements of Liminal, right? Like when he gets sliced and his like exterior turns out to look like a clay suit or something. It kind of breaks off.
Yeah, he's wearing like a disguise over himself to cover up his true nature.
I thought that was pretty neat.
Visuals, it looked good. Yeah. Now, the book does look very distinct, right? You could look at a single page of this and know, even if Magic's not on the page herself, this is from this title.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that a book has a visual identity. A lot of books these days for the big two kind of all look the same. This one looks different. That's a good thing. So yeah, I'm not exactly incredibly eager to see where the story goes. I'm not like, oh, I can't wait for the next issue to come out. But when the next issue hits my stack of comics, I'll be curious to see what happens. So I guess I'm going to call Magic number 3 a 6.5 out of 10. It's fine.
Yeah.
How about you?
It's definitely, it's fine. I'm enjoying it more, I think. I'm becoming more of a Magic fan, so I will give it just a straight 7. But
7.
that's more of an emotional reaction. And I really like the colorist in this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've said this before. Anytime we have like everything kind of being a dark scene, I think it looks great. And
yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the early issues of NYX, which had that bright, we're in nighttime and we had these very deep, saturated neon type colors.
Mm-hmm.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, that was Magic number 3. Now moving on to our final book of the week, which is Psylock number 5, Hostile Hospitality, written by Alyssa Wong. And now it says guest artist Vincenzo Caratu with Moises Hidalgo, which I think is an editorial error because Vincenzo Caratu has been the main artist the whole time. And Moises Hidalgo was guest artist in issue 4. So I think they just forgot to remove the word guest from the title page. Also, it's not even really sent. I don't know. It just looks weird. I think they just forgot the word guest. But we've got 2 artists on this. I can't really pick up a place where one artist leaves off, the other begins, so the art looks fine. Colors are by Fer Cifuentes Sujo, and letters are by Ariana Mayer. When we left off, Psylocke had thought she was all sneakily sneaking into the creepy mansion where the creepy taxonomist lives. But he knew she was there all along. He altered her mind with the dust from butterfly wings, and then he captured her and pinned her to the wall as if she herself was a butterfly, really leaning into the whole butterfly imagery thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, are you reading Ultimate X-Men, Ruben?
I am, but I haven't gotten to it.
In the latest one, we see Psylocke, or that version of Psylocke, and her psionic powers get a dragonfly motif.
Mm.
A little bit of twist, kind of interesting. It's a pretty good book. But as we open this issue, Psylocke is still pinned to the wall like a butterfly, and she has these giant pins through both wrists and both hips. Also her jacket, but who cares about that? But keep this in mind, because these are big, like, inch-diameter metal rods through both of her wrists and both of her hips.
Well, we already know you can get a spike through your stomach and
a whole giant tree could go through everything. But
so
yeah,
this isn't even hitting internal organs.
Seems bad for her, but somehow she's going to be all right. One of the butterflies flitting around her is carrying a speaker-microphone combo through which the taxonomist speaks with her.
Mm-hmm.
Taxonomist shares his bleak worldview. He's had this horrible, painful genetic condition since birth. He doesn't say that he should have been a DC villain, but come on, he is 100% a DC villain. His response to his condition is that he decides the whole world is broken, there's no fixing it, but what I can do is to preserve the delicate, the unique, and the special. And we see that this part of his mansion is a museum with dead bodies preserved under glass. Now, besides the bodies, there are some other items. We see a pair of high-top sneakers, we see a pair of high-heel shoes, and we see a handbag. What do you think that's about, Ruben?
Why he's got all that?
Yeah, because it should be all... I mean, we see some dead people. We see a person cut in half, so you can see the internal organs. We see, like, some weird mutated type people. Mm-hmm. But then he just got, like, some shoes. I want to know why that's there. I don't know. Was that in the script? Did the artist just need to fill in some space and was, hey, I kind of like shoes. I'll put my Air Jordans here?
Yeah.
I want to know why these shoes are so good, so interesting to taxonomist.
Yeah.
We're not going to find out, Ruben. Spoiler. No. We never find out. But what the taxonomist really wants is to have both this Psylocke, canon, and Betsy Braddock.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ruben, we're going back there. It does look like this book is going to submit to it's like a gravitational pull. But the only interesting thing I think people know about Psylocke is, Betsy used to control this body.
Yeah.
And boy, I wish this book had gone in a different direction. I would like this book not even to be called Psylocke. I would like canon to drop the whole Psylocke name because that was Betsy's thing. Mm-hmm. I would like her to have her own identity, but it just seems impossible. Like there just isn't that much else about Psylocke to have a book be about, so the writers just can't help but always return to this one thing.
She could go by the Revolution.
She could be the Revolution. Somebody's got to be the Revolution.
Isn't that Winter Soldier's thing now?
Had his Winter Soldier, yep. So she could also do that. So this Betsy thing pisses Psylocke off, reasonably enough. We get another flashback to her childhood with a hand, and then at the end of that page, we see that she activates her psionic powers. We turn the page, and she just, like, Hulk Hogan's herself to be able to bust loose from those pins. Yeah. And in this scene, we see blood all over her hips, and her wrists. But then on the next page, all that blood disappears, and she easily starts kicking the ass of all those creepy robot animal things.
Yeah.
So why is she able to break free? Why are there no effects? And why, Ruben, is the taxonomist first, really happy? Oh, show me everything. Show me your skills. And then we turn the page, and now he's so upset that she's doing the thing she's been doing all along, which is easily beat up all his robots. So at the end of the battle...
They're cyborgs. They're not robots.
Are they? I think they're just robots with dead animal parts stapled to them. I think that is it.
Yeah.
Right? The over in
I guess you're
Uncanny
right.
X-Men,
they're dead, and then he
cyborgs.
throws some cyborg stuff inside of it. All right.
I think that's just it. They're just, like a bearskin rug on top of a Roomba. It's not a cyborg. So at the end of the battle, Psylocke takes it on herself to punish the taxonomist. Doesn't call the cops. Doesn't turn this creepy murderer dude into the police.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, she forces him to simultaneously feel every emotion she's ever felt, plus other emotions that she's pulled from everybody else through the years.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be like, oh, that's a really fitting punishment? That makes sense. I don't get why that's the punishment. I don't see the connection. Am I missing something?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like, you're heartless. Now let me give you all the heart.
It's so generic, right? I want it to be specific to him because he is a creepy specific character. But
yeah, I just wanted her to kill him. I mean, she's an assassin, right? Like,
I'd buy that.
I don't need this
also,
torture.
What I wanted was to really lean into him being like a twisted or even more twisted version of Professor X, because that's clearly what he was designed to be. He's a rich bald guy. He uses a wheelchair. And he owns a mansion in upstate New York with a bunch of weird stuff in it.
Yeah.
He is a Charles Xavier type character. Now, if this was used to explore Psylocke's relationship with Charles and different aspects of Charles's psychology, that could have been really cool. But instead, we just get like that surface level vision of him, but no actual meat to it. So that was a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, Psylocke just wins the fight because it's time for the arc to be over. There's no clever twist. There's no symbolic resonance. She just beats up the bad guy.
And leaves.
Now, end of story. We do get an epilogue back at the Alaskan factory. Beast is shown bandaging Psylocke's wrists. Hey, we do have some acknowledgement that she was wounded. I don't think just cloth bandages here are going to cut it, right? These giant pins through her wrists. I think she needs reconstructive surgery. I think she's going to be out on rehab for a couple weeks. I don't know if this is, rotator cuffs up on the shoulder, but, she's going to be on the DL for a while. Cyclops is there. He does welcome her back on the team. Remember, this whole arc takes place when she was put on hiatus from being an active X-Men member.
Yeah.
Not that was ever reflected in the main X-Men book, but what are you going to do? And now we get a second epilogue. First one about Psylocke's professional life on the X-Men. This one about her personal life. She's with John Greycrow in his cabin, and he's cooking her a rabbit stew. And as Psylocke is about to sit down to dinner, we see, I don't know if this is diegetic. I don't know if this is just for the readers. I don't know if this is supposed to be real. But we see a ghostly image around her. That ghostly image being like a Siamese twin-like combination of herself and Betsy.
Yeah.
So,
your favorite
100%,
story.
That is where this story is going. So, Ruben, this book just kind of feels empty to me.
Yeah, when you do these types of stories and you really don't have anything new to say, I just wonder, why did you do this story?
Yeah, Jim likes to talk about, you can tell when a writer really loves a character, when a writer shows up saying, oh, I have a great idea for Mr. or Miss whomever, versus when it feels like a writer is given, hey, we're going to do a Psylocke book. You're a writer. You're a lady writer. That's even better for Psylocke. So clearly, you can write Psylocke. And it just doesn't seem like there was any spark to make this special, right? We get some fights, we get some villains, We get some little bit of creepiness in the background with those robots, but there's no reason to read this book rather than any of a dozen others. It doesn't matter to the overall story. It doesn't tell me why I should care about Psylocke canon as a character. It's just kind of here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I'm going to call this like a 5.5 out of 10. It's competent, but empty. And Ruben, I think I'm probably pretty much done with this series. How about you?
Yeah, I don't need to continue reading this. It's, to me, not doing anything. And the idea of going into like am I Betsy, am I canon? Like, I just don't want to read that.
It's just the cyborg story again, right? Am I man or am I machine? Well, I don't want to be a weapon. It's characters who have just the one thing that they can never get past, and that is boring. So, did you give a number for this?
Yeah, I just get a 5.
Plain old 5.
Definitive,
Very
like,
fair.
some story of, like, I just don't care about the story.
Yeah, I don't want to go lower because, again, it is a competently told story. There's just like a big emptiness at the heart of it. All right. That was all the books we wanted to talk about today. Next week, we have the big book will be X-Man Hunt Omega #1, not that there'll ever be a #2, which will be a 40-page issue wrapping up this whole crossover. So yeah, maybe we'll go into space. Maybe we'll see what's going on with the Shi'ar. I hope we get some more. I'm more interested in the Charles Xavier side of things than the Shi'ar side of things, but X-Force had me interested, so let's see if it keeps up the momentum.
Yeah, I'm speculating that this is not going to get resolved. I thought it would be, but I'm kind of thinking maybe this is all just like leading into Imperial.
Could be. And I was hoping we'd finally figure out who that other captive in Grey Malkin is, the other avian who... We're not going to get that, unfortunately. I really want to know at least when are we going to get there. They've been teasing that guy for a long, long time. So I want to know what's happening there. Next week, we'll also talk about Uncanny X-Men #12, which looks to be a Gambit one-shot, probably picking up. Remember at the end of an issue right before this crossover, there was a mysterious, shadowy figure tracking Gambit?
Oh, yeah.
I
had
think
forgotten
this
about
is
that.
picking that up.
Yeah,
I think that's
sense.
what it's going to be about. Other issues that do exist or will exist and that we may end up talking about are Laura Kinney Wolverine #4, which will feature Bucky Barnes, a.k.a. The Revolution. It'll also have next week Weapon X-Men #2. And also, this might be intriguing, Wolverine Revenge #5 of 5. Have you been keeping up with that miniseries?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's been
That was the Hickman one, right?
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
the Hickman kind of alternate universe-y thing.
Yeah, I feel like I read all of it, but it's just been forever since there's been one of those issues. So I don't know if I actually.
I know I read issue 1. I may have read issue 2. I haven't read the other 2. So
yeah, before
next week, when this comes out, I'm going to read the whole series, and maybe we spend a couple minutes talking about it, catching people up on what's going on. Maybe not. We'll find out. And that's next week. And also, before we leave, Ruben, I do want to say a special thanks to Drunken Simon for his guest appearance on the show today.
Wait, what the fuck is inside that giant egg?
It was Lalandra Simon. Pay attention. You rewind, Simon, listen to it again. We'll clear it all up.
It'll be very clear, yes.
It'll be fine. Okay, so Ruben, while I get Simon some black coffee and try to help him, sober up a little bit, what do you think our other loyal listeners can do with their valuable time?
Yeah, you can read more X-Men comics.
Get ready, everyone, and you just might survive. Ruben and Jason are here with their X-Men deep dive. Going through all the X-books is their mission, so get ready for the Learned Edition. Things are getting weird in here. Ruben hopes another sword book gets announced this year. It's the Weird Dose of X, the X-Men comic show. It's the Weird Dose of X, guaranteed not to blow. Except your mind.